All right, thank you so much for staying with Citizen TV. Let's get into this conversation. We're calling it State of the Nation. Honorable Caleb Kositany is with us, joining us on Skype. Member of Parliament for Soy. Honorable Jared Okello, Member of Parliament for Nyando, is with me in studio. Thank you so much for making time. And Honorable Beatrice Elachi, who's the former Speaker of Nairobi County Assembly, is also joining us via Skype. Thank you so much for making time. So let's start off with the front page of the Standard. There's no handshake for you, Raila allies tell Ruto. There's a quote there from several of them. There's a unity bid. Jubilee and ODM politicians take hard positions on reports of reconciling the president and his deputy after 4 months of fighting. Honorable Kositany, I'll start with you. Is there a need to reconcile the deputy president with his ally, should we call him former ally or ally, current ally, the President Uhuru Kenyatta?
Thank you, Trevor. I don't know where this story of reconciliation came from. I just saw it in one of the dailies. And we always have a suspicion that these are sponsored headlines by certain people who want to drive a certain narrative. But let me say this. If it were true that there is a reconciliation mission ongoing, on my side, and if I were the deputy president, I would only demand that there is respect for the office and the person who occupies the office of the deputy president. The other thing that we should focus on matters that touch the lives of the many Kenyans and not the few who are hustling and jostling for leadership positions. So for these guys who I've seen comments by some members there of ODM and some Jubilee fellows saying that there is no handshake for you, Ruto. I don't think William Ruto has sought a handshake with anybody. We already have the infamous handshake between the president and Honorable Raila Odinga, and I don't think Kenyans are ready for another handshake. What Kenyans want is how do they put food on their table? How will the KEMSA haste be? How far is the investigation on the KEMSA haste? When are the arrests? When are people going to court? Those are the things that are on the minds of Kenyans and not an issue of handshake. But the office, if you don't even want to respect William Ruto, then respect the office, the constitutional office of the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. That is the bare minimum. Honorable
Kositany, is there no respect from where you stand right now? Because you brought up the issue of respect twice. Do you think the Deputy President is not being respected?
Oh, absolutely, my friend. It is his name has become like it's a plague. It's a taboo to even be seen and that you have been called or you have called the deputy president. When people go for public functions, they don't even want to mention his name. Some people will say, if they are coming from Rift Valley, they'll say, Ule Jamaa wa kwetu. You know, they can't even bring themselves to mention his name. So it's actually sad that we're in this situation as a country, that we as Jubilee now, we no longer know ourselves. Jubilee is talking exactly the same language as ODM. If you saw the newspapers yesterday, ODM saying they will want to discipline members, they will not clear members who are not loyal to the party, and Jubilee speaking the same. It's actually sad that democracy is on its deathbed in this country.
Okay. Honorable Elachi, what are your thoughts on this? Is there no respect for the deputy president?
Well, first of all, I think the most important thing we should be asking ourselves, all of us as leaders, is where did it start? And I think that's the biggest challenge that we need to answer. Where did we start getting into a situation where we are not respecting each other? Because I believe that respect goes both ways. And therefore, for us to just come and reach where we have reached, it is the leaders themselves who have put people in this situation. And we cannot lie to ourselves that, yes,
Honorable Elachi, we seem to be having a bit of a challenge there with Honorable Elachi. Let's bring back, if we have her or not yet. Honorable Kolo, what do you think?
Well, I thank you, Trevor. It's nice to be back in this studio. It's been a while.
Yes.
It still looks beautiful as before. Now, firstly, let me disabuse the notion that these headlines are paid up. Because if you read one of the dailies, it is quite categorical that the EU delegation, comprising of 19 ambassadors, have made the deputy president, out of his own volition, to try to create some handshake between the deputy president or truce and the president. So when my brother Kositany says that these are paid up, headlines, then it doesn't hold. Otherwise, the deputy president ought not to have, jump-started the process of a handshake between him and the president. Secondly, we know where we have come from as a people, and we know the point of departure. When the president did make a handshake between himself and the Honorable Prime Minister, it is the Tanga team that drifted apart because they did not welcome that kind of handshake. There are people who have thrived in politics by way of division, and when the country is rallying behind itself to come together as one unitary outfit, others who would have otherwise benefited out of a fallout would then, create such brouhaha. And that is what we have constantly seen since the handshake between President and the Prime Minister. But it also reminds me about the role of a deputy president. You remember, I think you were quite young then, when the former late President Moi stayed for over 1 year without a deputy, without a vice president, as we used to call them then. But nothing stopped. All the functionalities of government were in place. And even when Tanga wing started to deviate from the train or from the rails, nothing has stopped. If there were certain responsibilities which now they are crying foul to be taken back to them, such as the ones that were given to my friend Dr. Fred Matiang'i to chair certain subcommittees of cabinet, nothing stopped. So if they created a setup to the president so that things could halt and nothing could move in government, then the answer is right there with them, that nothing has stopped. But one thing that is quite fundamental that we have to underscore is that through this handshake, for the first time in the history of this country, we have seen a stepped-up war against corruption, something that has never happened before. So if history shall be written, then there will be a byline for the former Prime Minister that through his participation with President Uhuru Kenyatta, they have managed to a larger degree vanquish this corruption that has taken a huge toll on the economy of our country. Suffice to say, if we had the handshake between Raila Odinga and President Uhuru Kenyatta, that was a handshake of the Republic of Kenya, because we understand how the elections were carried out. The votes that were, if I'm going to believe the figures now, the votes that were garnered by the former Prime Minister and the votes that were garnered by President Uhuru Kenyatta, then you can see the trajectory the country is taking or took at that time. And therefore, if President Uhuru Kenyatta is coming to have a handshake with Raila Odinga, he is carrying all the Jubilee adherents together with him. And
but that a handshake should galvanize everyone, not to be perceived to leave out some people like it is now being perceived to.
It is being perceived
more division rather than the unity it was supposed to create.
And I like what you have said about perception. It is just perception. Because when President Uhuru Kenyatta on the Isle of Harambee House met with the Prime Minister, I think it was on the 18th of March, 2018, he carried with him all the Jubilee supporters, and that included the Deputy President. When Prime Minister Raila Odinga went there, he carried us as NASA supporters, and that included Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka. So if the Deputy President now wants a special handshake outside the one that that was perpetuated by both Raila and Uhuru Kenyatta, then I think he's lost. But one thing that must be made very clear is that he is the pusher of this second round of handshake, and I don't see it coming.
All right, let's bring in Elachi back. Elachi, we lost you there earlier on. You were finishing your point on this issue of the truce, and you're saying that it's the leaders who are trumping up all this hula baloo that we're seeing now.
Well, yes, I was saying that it is important for us to just know that it is us who started the whole scenario of disrespecting each other. And I think it started in the DP's camp, disrespecting the president. Now, when others come in and now start playing that game, then now we feel the disappointment of how we work in that relationship. But then the other thing we need to ask ourselves is that when I look at the country and the way the country is now moving, haven't we now gone beyond that and now started even forming the camps very clearly and even forming the language that we need to use is a question we need to again. Is that how we want to move the country? Are we proving to Kenyans, because this is now Jubilee, are we proving to Kenyans that it happened those days is what is going to prove that without us being together, we can always be in war? Is that what we want to prove to the country? Is something very worrying to ourselves, that it is wrong. We felt we demystified and we closed a chapter that was a lie. But now what we are trying to show, indeed it was not a lie. It is indeed, that's how we have to work. Yeah. That if we are not in cohesion in Jubilee, then the country goes into turmoil. That is wrong, absolutely wrong. Okay. And so for all the leaders, and I can see my vice chair, I need him to understand it is time we prove to the country that indeed the things we demystified were true. But where we are headed and what we are doing, we will find ourselves into a very, very cross war for nothing, especially the war of words, which sometimes turn out to be what Kenyans will follow. And the narratives we create are very strong narratives, and it is also not good for the country at this time, especially when we look at what has been happening and the challenges that Kenyans are facing.
All right. Honorable Kositanyi, is that where the disrespect started, like Honorable Lachi says, that it started in the DP's camp?
Oh, absolutely not, Trevor. We have been very, very effective as members of. Let me own the tag Tanga Tanga. We are a vibrant parliamentary team, and we support Jubilee. We support His Excellency the President. But somehow, this handshake, when it came in, then it I think because ODM needed to feel the fruits of the handshake. We had a serious misunderstanding, a lot of false accusations within Jubilee. And as my good friend Honorable Jared is saying there, that Raila carried his troops into the handshake, and Uhuru likewise carried his troops. I want to say, I personally, as Caleb Kositanyi, I was not carried into the handshake because I was never involved. I was never consulted. The handshake has given birth to change the constitution. The discussion, which was never part of a Jubilee manifesto. The handshake has given birth to the return of police brutality, which was never part of the Jubilee manifesto. We have seen churches being tear gassed. We have seen that now we are back to police licensing meetings, something that was not in this constitution, and something that ODM then really fought against when they were in different political camps. But now they are quite silent that we have to seek permission from police officers to hold public meetings. So really, it is just this handshake has created more harm than good for the people of Kenya. Yeah. And I think, look at this, Trevor. Look at what happened in Parliament. I have seen that there is a meeting in State House on Saturday where the President has called the parliamentary leadership. In a democratic and a good democratic space, that should be a formation of only Jubilee members of Parliament. Now, government is ODM and ODM is government. So really, what are we going to discuss with the members who are supposed to be members of the opposition who are in government? Where does that leave us who have been thrown out of from the decision-making table and from enhancing the Jubilee manifesto? And secondly, Trevor, let me say, answer Jared there, that he claims that we carry the Jubilee baggage, that is now, if there is any baggage to be carried by in Jubilee. I want to tell him If there is any baggage to be carried, it is to be carried by the handshake. William Ruto has been sidelined, and what we are asking, all we are asking is we want respect. And I want to tell them, we are not the initiators of this discussion that is going on about a truce. Maybe somebody has initiated it, but it has not initiated.
But Honorable Kositany, how do you justify that statement that William Ruto has been sidelined? I mean, the president has said, let's focus on the Big Four agenda. He sometimes misses some meetings. It's not that he wasn't invited. For example, the COVID-19 conference at KICC, I was there myself. I saw his seat. It was empty. It's not that he wasn't invited. So when you say sidelined, what do you mean?
Oh, thank God for bringing that up, Trevor. How many COVID-19 meetings were held before that one where there was an empty seat? How many were held and how many was he invited for and he didn't attend? But he was never invited for any. He was only invited for this one. And William Ruto felt like, I have nothing to go and say because I have not been part of this COVID-19. I was sidelined.
But as the second in command, Honorable Kositany, you can't say he's been sidelined.
To offer advice and offer his thoughts on how we would combat with COVID-19, but nobody thought his ideas would be useful. So why was he being invited for that? Why was he being invited for that particular conference?
As the second in command, first of all, he doesn't even need to be invited. He should just know that it's part of his role to be there, right?
No, Trevor, presidential functions are by invitation. You don't just walk in, you hear the president is having lunch at Serena and you just walk in. It's not, unless he finds you there. But his president's functions are, because the sitting arrangement has to be done and all, it is by invitation. So you can't just walk in. And then, anyway, if a meeting is held in State House, like most of the COVID briefings were held in State House, and if you are not invited, how will you access even the State House? So why are we so particular about this one function that he missed when there are 12 others that he was not invited for? Okay. Which one holds more weight? The 12 that he wasn't invited for or the one that he missed?
Honorable Kositany, is it true that the Deputy President is being sidelined? And that's Kositany who said that. Honorable Kelo, is it true that the Deputy President is being sidelined?
Well, he's sidelining himself from the mainstream governance. We are all aware that times more than number, the President has come out to say, let us tone down political rhetorics. Let us cool political temperatures because they have the potential to divide this country deep down the middle. He has constantly ignored. I mean, this is a guy who has been running around like elections are going to be held this year. Yet, elections are 2 years away. A typical example is what happens in the U.S. U.S. has 350 million human beings. In Kenya, we only have 45 million. But up to June of this year, I remember the elections are slated for November the 4th this year, but up to June, the Democratic Party did not have a substantive candidate until after June. Now look at the economic pie of this country. Look at the voter population. Look at how they have progressed right from 1779 when they got their independence to date. But when you come to Africa and Kenya as an example, elections 2 years away and there is one guy running every day, holding meetings every day, as if elections are going to happen this year. I mean, he's just one candidate at the moment, running against his shadow. And that is why the president is saying, we promised Kenyans certain fundamental changes within our government. They coined the 4 points agenda to pursue for the welfare of this nation. This guy has ignored. So if you talk about sidelining the deputy president, I can unequivocally say that he has sidelined himself from government. And my brother Kositany has clearly said that all the baggage that they have carried since 2013 to date, with the deputy president as number 2 principal assistant to the president, that all those baggage will be passed over to Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. And you know why? Because all the taps of revenue, clandestinely so, were closed when the handshake did occur. And that is why I said there was a serious step-up of war against corruption. So these guys are just fighting back that all those doors have been closed. If they were men enough and they would want to pass the buck, as my brother Kositany claims, I would resign out of government and then carry out my cardinal responsibility as the leader of opposition, which he is now, but yet using the trappings and opulence of the state to pursue his personal agenda. So we need just to tell the truth as it is, that the Prime Minister reached out to President Uhuru Kenyatta because the country was so divided. We were at the edge of precipice. But he said, let us meet, unite this country and move forward. And that is exactly what he has done. There is no evidence, absolutely, that the Prime Minister is now part of government. Absolutely. All those trappings, all the powers are still held by the President and his deputy, who has now come out to say that we are not part of the mess in Jubilee, yet he's number 2. Raila Odinga has no role, absolutely, in this government. I would want to say that, well, he's talked about police brutality and trying to say that, you know, it is police brutality perpetuated by people from my end that are now, you know, fighting the deputy president. I want to say this, that when Kenyans rejected the security amendment laws that have now birthed this, ODM, and this is in record and in the Hansard of Parliament, rejected all these laws. We even went to court, but they said this is good for the nation, where the police would be given monopoly for war and violence. And that is agenda that they pushed. But once you have spread your bed, you have to lie on it. So they created it, let them enjoy.
Let's bring in Elachi. Elachi, what are your thoughts on this? Because Honorable Kositany said earlier on that democracy is on its deathbed and Jubilee no longer knows themselves. Do you agree with those statements? And is there any better way this would have been carried out? Elachi?
Trevor, you know, when I was in Senate, I think at that time, we told the National Assembly that this will come to home. At that time, we were so, we were bipartisan and we looked at the security law and we told them. So for me, at the moment, it's that we agreed as Jubilee to have these laws and we must follow them. Because when the time, and Mheshimiwa says, when the ODM were fighting it, we stood firm and we said, this is what we want for the country, for the betterment of the country. And so we cannot wish away and say, when it is with ODM, so it is okay. But now when it comes to haunt us ourselves, we feel the pain. No, these are laws of our country. We agreed on them. We are in government. We were the administration, and we passed them. And there are laws that have come now to ensure that we are all on the same page. So we can't blame each other on that. We had the numbers, we passed it. They went to court, we defeated court. So this is how we move as a country. But at the same time, let us not now, and that is one thing we always find difficult to take. That I remember Scholar Senior Orengo really crying to us. And so let us now feel it. Because at that time, we thought it was a joke. So we cannot, when we are doing it to others and we can't feel it, not now come and change and now start crying and saying, oh, this, no. We are still Jubilee from 2013 to now. And every policy that is in place is a policy that we have passed as a government. And we have to respect that policy. So now, since we know we have the numbers, you can amend the laws now, isn't it?
But there seems
that's what I'm asking my vice chair.
Honorable
we have the numbers. We can amend the laws.
Kosan, that's a direct question to you. I'll let you respond.
I am, well, I'm not the vice chair. I think, you see, I told you, Jubilee, we don't know themselves.
Vice is
Lachi has forgotten that I'm the Deputy Secretary General and the vice chair is Murathe. Maybe because of the constant association with Murathe, she thinks I'm the vice chair.
You see, that is how, Trevor, it is so difficult to understand where is our party, because we have two, they run the party in a very interesting way. And for me, I want to be very honest, sometimes I find it very difficult because as a member of that party and in everything I have gone through, I have never seen them bother So you even wonder why we be bothering with them, you know, especially the leadership of the party. And the only person I can really stand in is for the president, because then once in a while he has to come in as a party leader. But for the others, I have a lot of questions to ask all of them. I'm sorry. I'm just being very candid this morning. That if you ask me about Jubilee, if I'm asked as an individual person with my opinion, I will say there's something that we need to do very serious. We just need to reshape up the party properly.
Honorable Kositanya, are you driven by the good of the nation or personal interests?
Well, Trevor, I think maybe 80% or 90% is for the good of the nation. So it really, the personal interest really doesn't matter, because I think we all go into politics and positions of leadership for different reasons. Some go in for personal gain, some go in to try and effect a change. I believe in the person of the Deputy President. He is in politics for the right reason. He is in politics in order to engage with wananchi, get to know what their real issues are, and try and be part of the solution, not part of the problem.
And yet he doesn't see eye to eye with the president.
Yes, even if his position on uplifting the lives of fellow Kenyans, he conflicts with the president's then it has to be that way, because ultimately the people who hold us together and who we serve are God and the people. So really, it has to be the people's empowerment has to come before our personal needs. And I'm sure William Ruto is one person who is ready to shelve personal ambitions, like he has done before. He shelved his presidential ambition in order to be running mate to President Uhuru Kenyatta in 2013 and 2017. He is a person who has worked with Raila Odinga before, and that is a person who has demonstrated that he is a team player. It is just that right now, when we are approaching, and let me answer something that Gerald said before I forget, that the Deputy President is moving around as if there is an election next year. We all have different levels of energy, Trevor. We all have different levels of energy. We all have different views on how we want to engage with wananchi. And we all, as I said earlier, we are in politics for different reasons, and we are in position of leadership for different reasons. William Ruto is in a position of leadership whereby if his leadership ends at the deputy presidency, he will have made a mark. Somebody somewhere will say, we had somebody who was a deputy president and he gave me a wheelbarrow and my life changed. He gave me a mkokoteni and my life changed. He gave me saloon equipment, I'm told they're called dryers or something. Lachi would tell us better. And my life changed. So that is the part of who William Ruto is. Others want to ride on the tribal bandwagon. Okay. It is sad that now we have leaders who are trying to say, you go sit somewhere and organize your tribe, the other one organizes their tribe, but this man, William Ruto, is not being tribalist, he's being nationalistic. Okay. He has started a narrative that has put Kenyans together irrespective of their tribes, and it's very uncomfortable for the tribal, for tribal leaders. Okay. And I think anybody talking ill about the hustler nation is actually trying to take us back to tribal politics, which we are not ready to go for. Okay,
Honorable Kel, I'll come to you in just a bit. Let me bring back Elachi on this and hear our views. Elachi, this wheelbarrownomics, do you agree with this concept?
No, because number one, I don't understand. You want to tell me that as Jubilee, we've come from 2013, ensured we have the last mile, ensured we are trying, we ensured all primary schools have equal, let us say, electricity. Ensured we talked about the big four. And in all that, what my vice secretary wants to tell the nation is that as Jubilee, we were creating a hustler nation. That we were moving from last mile, going back to have lamps in our homes. Because as you speak, it's like you're telling me to have a wheelbarrow is a very, very good thing. I wish you'd be saying, giving people a cow, giving people, ensuring we come out completely from houses of grass to houses of mabati. And I mean, where you are telling me mukokoteni. Mukokoteni means I have to use my young people who might not even be able to go back home and even be able to have rights with their wives, because of how they are tired. We are still believing, while people are moving to motorbikes and you know, when you look at how the big nations of Asia grew, they moved from those things and moved to a next level of technology. But now you can imagine, and the other question I'll ask my vice secretary, is that indeed you are a person within the belief and the faith of my deputy president, is that he believes in the Bible. And the Bible says, and I want to remind, and that's where we go wrong completely, if we indeed stand in the faith of God and we tell a nation that indeed you would have to use a word hustler. Was that the only word you looked in the Bible and realized that's how you can identify with the people of Kenya? Is that how low we have become? Because I believe I am a daughter of Zion, a daughter that I believe and have favor in God, that I don't believe in what we are doing. And anyway, if you've been laughing at you've been looking at the women reps, and some of us, these are the things we were giving Wananchi. That's how low, because we did not afford.
Yeah.
But then when you find a number 2 of a nation doing the same, then what will the MPs, when they will be campaigning, be giving, saying this is something I brought to the people? What?
Okay.
And that is what we need to stop.
Okay.
Because for me, I believe there is hope in the people of God, and people of God have big faith, that they can see beyond the wheelbarrows. And I'm not saying it in a bad way. I am just saying it's because you took the Bible and said, this is what we believe in. What is in the Bible is not of a hustle. I refuse that.
Honorable Okello, what do you think?
Trevor, I think I need a...
Honorable Kositanyi, hold on 1 second. Let's bring in Okello, then I'll let you respond. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Trevor, you know, with nostalgia, I remember what my sister Elachi has said concerning the prophetic words of Senator James Orengo when he stood on the floor of the House at the height of police brutality and told Jubilee adherents then that a time is coming that regime will eat its own children. That has come to pass. For us who contended with the false smell of tear gas at the beginning of this regime, can now at least breathe pretty as we watch our counterparts now at least having a taste. That is just a small taste, and they're crying foul. We had it for over 4 months on a daily basis, and you can remember this. But they had it only once somewhere around Muranga, and you know they're crying at the top of their voices. But that is exactly what we went through for the longest period. Now, I'm reminded of the former President Obasanjo of Nigeria, who had frosty relations with his deputy. For 3 years, they never looked eye to eye, no eyeball contact. And, you know, it has adverse effects on everything from the social to economic to political. And that is exactly what we are seeing here today. So I think even as BBI plans to bring its report out, we also need to find a formula upon which if you have a deputy who is headlong and does not play ball, what exactly do you do with him? Because at the end of the day, they are using state resources to champion their own selfish agenda. So we need to, you know, prescribe to a neurosurgeon how best to separate the Siamese twins joined at the hip between the president and the deputy, as has been decided by the Constitution now. Otherwise, we are going to see this push and pull going on for a very long time. The Wilbaronomics. The president's one key agenda out of the 4 was manufacturing. And it was informed by the need to create a larger cake, bake a larger cake for everyone to enjoy. At the moment, people are feeding from not hand to mouth, but finger to tooth because of our economy. And many people have lost jobs. Buildings that were hitherto being erected all over the country have stalled because there is no money. And therefore, you ask yourself, what is a wheelbarrow for if there is nothing to carry in that wheelbarrow? Of course, they also buttress my argument that there is nothing to carry when you saw the deputy president sitting on a wheelbarrow, because that is the only good you can carry at the moment, being pushed around in his compound. So how I wish that we would, you know, step back reflect, retool, and enlarge our economy so that the wheelbarrow will have something to say, to do. Okay. But finally, I met a guy who benefited from one of the wheelbarrows in Nairobi. And he told me he lives on a 10th floor in a very tiny house, 10th floor. And you know, all over the world, there is no parking space for wheelbarrows. And he had, for the first 3 days, carry his wheelbarrow on top of his head, all to the 10th floor, because these houses have no lift, so you have to walk. 10th floor. On the 3rd day, he sold it for 200 shillings because he never needed it. I want to believe the deputy president did not get them for 200 shillings. But now you can see the adverse effects the wheelbarronomics have, even on the economy itself, because it was meant to create more than 200 shillings in a day. Wheelbarrows go for about 5,000 shillings if what I bought is anything to go by. So 5,000 to be exchanged for 200 shillings. Are you enlarging the economy or you are killing this economy? So certain actions that we take as politicians boomerang on us unknowingly. And this is one classical example. I think, again, stratifying the nation by calling me a dynasty and Trevor a hustler, when my late father was just a primary school teacher, I do not know whether that qualifies for one to become a member of a dynasty. But finally, the late Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, the doyen of opposition politics, was deputy president or vice president for just 2 years. And his son has qualified to be called a dynasty. William Ruto is now deputy president 8 years, and he's saying he's part of the hustler nation. So do you serve for 2 years to become a dynasty, and then if it jumps from 2 years to 8 years, then you get back to dynasty, to hustler nation? So let us not play with the minds of Kenyans. And such division, such messages have serious ramifications on our politics or our body politic.
Let's break. Because Tan, you wanted to jump into this and respond to Elachi. Your sound, let's get your sound in just a bit. I think you're on mute, Honorable Kositany.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, I was on mute.
Yes,
I think I'm happy with this wheelbarrow discussion. But what I want to tell my Honorable Elachi and my good friend Honorable Jared, is that the recipients of the wheelbarrows are not complaining. The giver is not complaining. So why is, if that person, if one of them got a wheelbarrow and he lives on the 10th floor, clearly he didn't need it, and that is why he sold it at a throwaway price. But we have seen how wheelbarrows change lives. Most of those people you see cutting sugar cane and they have pushing a wheelbarrow. You see some ladies selling vegetables on a wheelbarrow. They don't own those wheelbarrows, they hire them. Most of the people you see pushing goods with them mkokoteni don't own them mkokotenis, they hire them. Now they are being empowered to own their own. They are now owners. They are no longer hirers, they are owners. So really, I don't, if this wheelbarrow thing is wrong and you feel the deputy president is doing something wrong, then why don't you do what is right? Is what is right BBI? Is what is right to change the constitution? Is what is right creating more big positions at the top at the expense of the common wananchi? So I think the deputy president is doing the right thing, and that is why it is causing a lot of people headache, and it is uncomfortable because the common wananchi now feels, for once, we have somebody who cares about exactly what affects us. And let me say this. We didn't just wake up one day, the deputy president did wake up one day and decide that go and buy wheelbarrows and look for people who will need it. We did a survey on a need basis. What are the effects of COVID on the common wananchi? And we found these fellows who were pushing mkokoteni. The team found Omondi, who was pushing mkokoteni, and that is why we say we are not tribal. And they were told, we want to empower you, and they said, buy us our own mkokoteni, we are hiring this one. And when they were told that it was the deputy president who wanted to empower them, they insisted, tell him to buy us a mkokoteni. The deputy president offered to buy them a border. They said no. He offered to buy them a motorized motorbike with a trailer at the back. They said no. We want mkokoteni because that is a hustle. We know that is a business we do, and we wake up at 4 a.m., deliver goods, and by 8 o'clock we have returned the mkokoteni, paid for it, and we have been paid our money. So really, we are operating on a need basis. The other issue that Honorable Jared has brought up about Ruto calling himself a hustler. Ruto is no longer a hustler, but he rose to where he is because from a hustler nation. So let us not try and say that Ruto is claiming he's a hustler. He is saying, look at me. I came from humble background like you. I have money to get to the position of deputy president. You too can do it. Trust in God, work hard, avoid alcohol, avoid drugs, and you will make it in life. So he is an inspiration to millions of Kenyans. And this conversation, as Deputy President has said before, is going to be uncomfortable. Okay. Unfortunately so, but it's a conversation that is here with us now. Right. It is about changing the conversation, not changing the constitution.
Okay. Elachi, what do you make of the timing? And I'll come to you, Bukelo, before we wind up. What do you make of the timing, Elachi?
The timing for me is very interesting. And for my leader to say that the deputy president goes with the needs. So it's a leader who will never take us to new needs, but we have to conform into the old needs that are there. And therefore, does it mean within his leadership we shall never change to better innovation as the world evolves? Is that what he, because if indeed Kenyans came and say, the new Kokoteni, which is with a bike behind, and you have this, and that's what is happening everywhere, where people are now moving, where we have different ways of putting up even kiosks, where they are movable, and you can, in the evening and in the morning when you wake up, you find a place you would not believe people are selling. So is that what our leader is saying, that no, we are going back to the old ways, and that is what Kenyans need. And therefore, as a leader, I cannot come and show them this is what is there. This is new, and it's more, you do more work with it, you benefit, I've enhanced it from this to this. But after answers or whatever, I just want to ask this. Does it mean from 2013 to 2017, my deputy president didn't have that opportunity to show all this? It means, 2017 is when this comes out. Does it mean that, and he had quite, you remember, Trevor, at that time, I think the president had left everyone in a teamwork formation where you had the right to run and do what is right for the country.
Yeah.
But what the president realized is that we let him down, to be very honest. And it has had to have him now to stand firm as president. And I know that is what is very uncomfortable to many people. We wonder why. But we realize we took advantage of the charisma and the goodness of the president. And instead of doing what was right, we went to our own blockages and decided to do what is individualistic to us, what benefits me. And when he realized that, he comes around and he changes the leadership, he changes his style of leadership, and this brings very uncomfortable, what will I say, people sitting pretty and wondering, wow, is he the same president? He is the same president. It's only that he realized we took advantage of his charisma. We took advantage of what he gave us to do right. And we did it to enrich ourselves and to forget about the nation.
Okay.
That's why the president is how he leads us today, because of what we did ourselves.
All right. I have to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll wind up on this conversation and then talk about the State House meeting that's coming up and also read a bit of your feedback coming through. Stay with Daybreak.